Hi, welcome back to Common Knowledge, and I'm Rachel Zagaroli, and I'm here with Detective Kristie Gruenwald. Kristie, we're talking about 911 today. It's a lifesaver, comes in handy. We all need to have it. We need to educate our older adults about 911 and about cell phones so that they are able to have that capability no matter where they are. But as we talked about in an earlier part of our show, there's a lot of problems with that we need to make sure that they understand. Well, not really problems, but just how to use 911. So we've discussed a lot of that. Let's talk a little bit about what we need to provide to the dispatcher when we do call.
And that's where the problems lie. It's not in the technology. I want to make that, clear. You will get emergency aid, anytime that you call 911. But what happens is now with the cell phone use as opposed to landline use, there's some problems in getting information that is just crucial and vital. And one of those things is the location. When you called from the landline, as we talked before break, when you would call from the landline, we would get your location. A lot of times now, like you had talked about, some of the seniors are sitting in their cars making a phone call thinking that we know where they're at, and we don't because they're calling from a cell phone. So one of the things that our dispatchers are requesting is that when you call, please immediately get your location out. And they'll be prompting you with questions. One of the things that they say right away when they answer the phone is, 911, what's your emergency? And then they'll prompt you with additional questions for information they need. The second that they're requesting is that you give them the telephone number that you're calling from. Cell phones, as you know, as technology has advanced, unfortunately, calls get dropped. And dropped means that for some reason the signal between the cell tower and your cell phone is disconnected. And unfortunately that can be problematic if dispatch doesn't know your location and if they also don't have a telephone number to call you back.
Well, and another big problem too is that how many of us really remember our cell phone number all the time, especially if you aren't used to using that cell phone number. So maybe we need to remind our audience that, it's good to have that written down somewhere so that they could access that and be able to have that. I mean, I know sometimes I can't remember my cell phone number. I guess I don't want to tell anybody, a whole lot of people that, but sometimes that's hard to do. You do forget that. And if you're in an emergency, it's very difficult.
Absolutely.
It's very difficult. I mean, it has actually happened before where I've been in front of the center and we had a medical emergency and I had my work cell phone and called, but they still didn't know where I was calling from. And even to me, it was very confusing. I'm like, why don't you know where I'm calling from?
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I know a lot of people do that have a hard time remembering their cell phone number, only because they don't give it out very often, is that they somehow write it on a piece of paper and tape it to the back of their phone so it's large enough that they can see it without the aid of any kind of glasses or anything like that. Because let's face it, when we're in an emergency situation, if we need the aid of glasses to help us read, we might not have them next to us. We might not know where they are. Sometimes a panic situation, we might not even think to try and figure out, hey, I need these. Why can't I read this number? We're just trying to read the number. So that's something that I know a lot of people do, and it's been very beneficial.
So we want to make sure that when we call in, we give our name and we give our location. First two things?
Preferably the location would be the first thing.
Location first, so location first, then our name, and then what the emergency is.
Well, the first question will be, what is your emergency? And then, so that will be drawn out by the call taker. But the second thing that we're requesting that you give us is the location on your own. So I guess the first thing would be asked would be, what's the emergency? You would tell them, and then we would ask you that the first voluntary thing that you give out is the location. Okay. And then from there, your telephone number and your name. So as we definitely want to know who we're dealing with or who we need to provide help to, it's more important for us to have the location and a telephone number before your name, unfortunately, because we might know your name as, Mrs. Smith, but we don't know where you are.
True. Well, and I just cannot say enough about the dispatchers. Anytime we call, they're just like angels because they're very calm, they're very soothing, and any type of emergency, they're just like, oh, we're right here with you, it's okay. And it's just, I just can't say enough about that. You know,
Yeah.
they're just so wonderful about those things.
They do a great job.
They do. They do. Well, you all do.
Good. Well, thank you.
What kind of response can they expect from 911?
They'll get an immediate response. Now, depending on what type of emergency that they're involved in will depend on who's sent out. If it's just police, if it would be police and fire ambulance, that'll depend on the type of emergency. But the response time is immediate. We send out somebody as soon as we have your location, we know what the emergency is, even if we don't have all the information. Because what happens is that our call center will continue to take in information and update the officer as they're en route to you. I can't give you an exact time, that our response would be under, this amount of time or by this time, but I can tell you that it'll be absolutely immediate. You might actually have an officer a block away, and they might be there in 10 seconds, or they could be just down the street. So
I have never heard a complaint from any of our older adults, whether they live at Meadowbrook Commons or they live in their own homes, about it took forever for them to get there. When they got there, they weren't polite. I have never ever heard that complaint. It's just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're there that quickly. So. And I think another thing we need to remind our older adults is that not to be scared to call 911.
Right.
Because even if it's a false alarm, it's something that you have to do. You'd better be safe, than sorry.
And I'm glad that you brought that up. A lot of times what I hear from the public when I'm out, doing talks and just, mixing up with them is that they don't feel comfortable. They're nervous because they don't want to bother us, and that's concerning because if they are having some kind of medical emergency and they don't want to waste our time, that could be life-threatening to them.
Yes.
So we tell somebody that they should call 911 anytime that there is a threat to life or a severe possibility that there's a threat to property. Or if you see an emergent crime in progress, that would be another reason to call. We tell people not to call for things like practicing to make sure that you know how to do it, or we tell them not to have it in speed dial for your phone because it can result in accidental dial-ups. But please, if you think that you're having any type of emergency, please call us and we will walk you through it.
Sounds good. Great information, and it's something that we all need to know. We need to be educated on this all the time. And also, you're going to be there. The police department will be there for a presentation in March. I believe it's March 26th.
Yes.
1:30. Senior safety, all types of tips.
Yes, all types of personal safety, how to keep yourself safe, as well as financially how to keep yourself safe, protect yourself against identity theft, and specifically scams that are out there right now to try and separate you from your money. So
it's great. Detective Gruenwald, thank you so much for being here. It's great information. We need to keep educating and let people know, and just, thanks to you and your whole department, absolutely wonderful. So thank you so much for coming.
No problem. Thank you.
Great information today for you on common knowledge for the safety and 911 system. So hopefully you know what that is, and we will have some information for you at the Senior Center. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.